officially welcome to everyone who has come out this afternoon. It's warm, but we have a little cloud cover which is helping to cool us. I promise we won't make this too long, especially for people that are dressed up in suits and ties. But this is a memorial for an auspicious occasion that happened 100 years ago today at 6 o'clock p.m. Now, for a railroad museum or any other kind of historical society or museum in New York, on Long Island, Suffolk County, Riverhead, Greenport, Southold, to function, we need the support of many, many people. So today, I want to recognize the people who have allowed this to move forward, to allow our museum to function and to be as strong in the community as it is, and to thank each and every one of these people who have had a part in this journey. We started this back in October of last year, and we're coming to fruition now in August on the 100th anniversary of the wreck. From the state of New York, he's not with us this afternoon, but Anthony Palumbo sends his regards, our senator, and Jacob Velasquez is here, sending good regards from our assembly person, Jody Giglio. And I thank the state. We are chartered and we function as a museum because of the state and the education department, and their support comes through 365 days a year. So, to Anthony and to Jody, we thank them. Please pass that back when you go back to the office. Thank you. Suffolk County. We are Suffolk County's Railroad Museum. With over 10 million people living in Long Island, we have room for several railroad museums. The Oyster Bay Railroad Museum represents Nassau County, and the MTA, through their MTA Museum in Brooklyn, supports the 5 boroughs. The Railroad Museum of Long Island is Suffolk County's Railroad Museum. And the Long Island Railroad and railroading on Long Island is a tremendously huge story to tell. So it's not wrong to have 3 museums, and it's not wrong to have each of the geographic areas of this large, huge island represented. So we say thank you to the support and the looking after of us from our county. Our executive, Ed Romaine, who sends his regards and couldn't be with us today. He had another event. But most importantly, right across the street from the Railroad Museum, his office overlooks us, our first district legislator, Greg Dorosky. Thank you, Greg. Thank you for your support. And
good to see you this morning across the street.
There you go. Yeah, you caught me early, getting ready to come out here today. And this is our 30th anniversary in the town of Riverhead. We started 36 years ago in Greenport Village in the town of Southold. When the earlier Steam Up 39 organization kind of folded in 1993, the New York State Supreme Court gave us all the property and all of the assets of that organization. And literally overnight, we had a home in Riverhead. So that's 30 years ago this year. When I approached the Riverhead Town Council with this proposal, you guys were overjoyed. Thank you. Thank you. And that goes back to last November when we started. You're to be commended for your support of our museum and for things like this, where we can make an effort to show our place in history with markers and organized events. And the town of Riverhead has always been there for us. Representing our supervisor, Jerome Halpin, Ms. Devin Higgins. Thank you. And please, supervisor's away right now, express our thanks to him. I'm going to mention Joanne Waskey, one of our Riverhead Town Council people, because she was so enthusiastic in November. She had the letters that I needed for the Pomeroy Foundation to me the next day. Joanne, thank you. But that's the kind of cooperation that we have from Riverhead. Fire Marshal's Office, Police Department, Building Department, and you've got great people working for you. Thank you, Joanne. Ken Rothwell, another one of our council members. He was happy to hear my conversation that night and spoke in favor of this. Denise Merrifield, thank you for your support that night as well. And an old friend, Bob Kern, sits on the council, and again, your support, your unanimous support of this program today. Thank you from all the members. Now, I cannot go without speaking about our first responders, our Riverhead Police Department, our fire marshals, and our highway department. These people take care of us in so many ways every day, 365 days a year. And the Railroad Museum works with these people throughout the year with our inspections and being safe. And Superintendent of Highways was down here a couple Fridays ago to show me where he wanted us to put the sign, because believe it or not, the location of that sign has an impact in this wintertime. When the plows come down, they need a place to pile up the snow. So besides our town council, these departments work very closely with us throughout the year. So I would like to recognize our highway superintendent, Mike Zaleski, and his son is guarding us up at the top of the road as a traffic control officer. Our chief of police, Ed Frost, a friend and a person that I deal with through emergency management, and sent these gentlemen down here to be with us today. Brian's right here. Thank you. And our fire marshal, our chief fire marshal, Andrew Smith. I've known Andrew for many years. When he started for the town of Riverhead, and he went to Village of Greenport, the Long Island Railroad, and now he's here overseeing our department. These are wonderful people, and they get us through the year, and we work together to do the events and to do projects like this. So thank you to all of these people. Now, a very special personages, two people that are with us today. You will hear me tell the story in a moment about the Pickle Works wreck, and we will name the names of those that were lost, and we were told about. Mrs. Nancy is Mrs. Malsby is the granddaughter of Harold L. Fish, who died here 100 years ago today. And his great-granddaughter is with us, Tyler Geist-Dewar. They've come down all the way from Connecticut to be with us today. We're so happy you could make it and be here for the unveiling and to hear the story of the wreck and why we're here doing this today. So thank you very much for coming down. Our thoughts are with you on this 100th anniversary of the passing of your grandfather and your great-grandfather. So what happened 100 years ago at 6:09 p.m., the Shelter Island Express, with over 380 members, passengers, and workers from the Long Island Railroad, was coming at speed. They were trying to make up some time. They were about 18 minutes late getting to Riverhead. And they're coming from Jamaica. The day was a day heavier and hotter and more humid than it is today. And we're pretty humid today. And there were electrical thunderstorms going on up and down the track. It was a real dog day afternoon in August in 1926, Friday the 13th. And it was dark, and it was forbidding, and there were lightning and thunderstorms in this whole area. and the train was trying to make up its time. So at speed, it was doing some estimates close to 60 miles an hour as it was heading east to Greenport, the terminal for the Long Island Railroad. This was a special train. It was called the Shelter Island Express. And after it left Jamaica, it didn't make a stop until it got to Riverhead. And then it continued as an express to Greenport. There were 7 cars and 2 locomotives. This was a very large train. There was a Pullman car, and there was a combine car which carried baggage for the vacationers that were coming out, as well as some passengers. There was a pickle factory. Golden's Pickle Factory was right here. We are sitting at the back of the factory. It's no longer here, and this is one of the greatest changes in the face of Calverton. The factory's not here anymore, and the devastation that was caused to the building forced the Golden's family not to rebuild. So we lost the pickle factory, and that had been a busy part of our farming. Farmers would come here with their cucumbers and their pickles that they would grow in the fields, and they would make the pickles here. And the train track ran in front of the building with a siding that came up to the building so that they could send the barrels of pickles and things already contained to go back to the city and other parts of the country. This was a happening business at the time in 1926. The switch that we hear about was over behind these trees. There's a little dirt road that runs off, a little private road, and the switch was just this side of that dirt road. And as I've told several people today, if you walk it, you don't see it, because one thing with the railroad, change happens all the time. So the tracks have moved over 100 years. It's not exactly the main line, which we can see through the trees, isn't exactly where it had been. So over the years, any evidence that we could find has been erased with change of moving tracks and change with the ballast and things. But trust me when I say, when we investigate and we looked at old maps, the switch was here, over behind these trees, and that rail siding came right up to the building that was here, the Pickle Works. These people were riding along, looking forward to a weekend at their homes on Shelter Island, Greenport, and East Marion. Little did they know that a bolt stood between them and their weekend on the East End. Now the bolts on the switches and the machines that are used to move trains from one track to another, the bolts are stopped by a cotter pin so that they can't fall off of the threaded rod. That cotter pin was missing here. And the Interstate Commerce Commission, now the National Transportation Safety Board, they found that the missing cotter pin allowed the bolt over time to work its way down. And it was just the luck of the draw that that bolt stood between the safe transit of this train. The first engine passed through the switch, and it was just the trailing tender that had the water and the coal in it that started to kick over as the switch moved. Without that bolt, they had to hold the mechanism tight. No one had to throw it. It threw itself when the bolt dropped off. The second locomotive, what we call pick the switch, turned and went into the siding. Now as that second locomotive, and remember they're moving for 55, 60 miles an hour heading to Greenport, as the second locomotive started to go into the siding, the inertia pulled the tender and the first locomotive, wrenching it back and pulling it off its track. In doing so, all of the coal that the firemen had been shoveling into the boiler. As the train was wrenched back by the second locomotive, all of that coal flew forward, pressing the engineer and the fireman against the back head of the boiler. They were buried in coal. And after the accident, they had to be dug out of the coal, and they were killed. The engineer and the fireman on the second locomotive, they survived with just some scratches and bruises. And they were heroic in the sense that they were able to put the fires out in the boiler. Had those fires not been put out, possibly an explosion of the boiler or a fire starting in the wreckage of the Pickle Works Factory itself, it was wood, could have started and would have made the disaster worse. So we give a nod to the engineman and the firemen on the second locomotive. As soon as the Suffolk County District Attorney arrived here, and he arrived within an hour after the accident, he was close by, he had the two men taken to the Suffolk County Jail and sequestered. Didn't let them talk to the press, didn't let them talk to the people, took them up and kept them at the jail so that they could be interviewed by the Interstate Commerce Commission folks that were coming out from New York City. Behind the two locomotives, the Pullman car and the baggage combine also pulled off the tracks, went over on its side and telescoped into the building. And there we had more loss of life. We will identify and memorialize those people shortly. We're going to stop for a moment and have a new ballad that has been written by Dr. Stephen Sanfilippo. Dr. Sanfilippo is a professor at Stony Brook University, and before that had been a history teacher at Longwood Public High School. And he and his wife Susan both collect songs going back to colonial days on Long Island. And they represent that music to us today. And Stephen, knowing that the 100th anniversary was coming along, felt that it was important to memorialize the accident in song, and selecting a colonial melody, put words to it. And Stephen couldn't be with us today because he's playing up in Maine. So we will hear a recording of Stephen Sanfilippo's Pickle Works Factory.
I'll tell to you a story. At first I think you'll grin, of the great Pickle Works train wreck that took place at Calverton. But once you've heard the story of that sad and fateful day, to laugh would be a sin, and tears will wash your smile away. Now Calverton's a little town, it's hardly on the map, but it is well remembered for this grave railroad mishap. When into the Pickle Factory crashed a train that jumped the track and took the lives of many poor souls who perished in the wreck. Bill Squires was the engineer, a brave and haughty soul. John Montgomery was his fireman. He labored shoveling coal. These two fine men from Greenport, for them we hold no scorn, for they have left their widows and their friends. There were two other Norfolk men whose lives ended on that day. Mr. Fish from East Marion and Greenport's Mr. Way, headed to this tragic passing. No words from pen or tongue can tell of George, the boy of 3, and Sister Dorothy, only 1. Mrs. Shuford and a maid were pinned beneath the train. They cut the maid's leg off, her dear life to maintain. It took many hours to set Mrs. Shuford free, and then she learned of her children's deaths, George and Dorothy. Mrs. Shuford died soon afterwards. Her suffering was great. We all do mourn for her and for her children's fate. One word reached Mr. Shuford. He grieved in sorrowful dismay. We pray and hope they'll meet once more in heaven on Judgment Day.
Stephen's song brings to us the weight of what happened at 6:09 p.m. 100 years ago today. We know that there were many people who were injured, some broken bones, some broken ribs. One gentleman had some lacerations to the head and lots of bruises and cuts. Those people were attended to by members from the military, the 62nd Coast Artillery. They came out of what is today Brookhaven National Laboratory. It was Camp Upton. And they were on maneuvers between Camp Upton and here in the wilds of the Pine Barrens. When news of the accident reached their commander, who was a Colonel M.G. Spink, he immediately dispatched his couple of doctors and his medical team to come to find out what had happened in Calverton. They messaged back to him the size of the wreck and the number of people who were involved. And Colonel Spink immediately gathered up his 300 troops on maneuvers and sent them here, dispatched them with great cause. They brought searchlight trucks, they brought equipment, and they began getting the people out of the wreckage and securing the scene so that could make some sense out of it, get people taken care of. And there weren't too many telephones in Calverton at the time, but word got back to Riverhead, and the Riverhead doctors and nurses and members of the Riverhead Fire Department came as quickly as they could to be here and help. And the rescue efforts went on throughout the night into the next day. Because most of the people were ambulatory and they really weren't injured in the back part of the train. And many of those people had to walk the distance to Riverhead Station. There were no taxis or Ubers at the time. And it said it's 5 miles from here to Riverhead. So the bulk of the people on the train who were in good health got off and they walked the tracks down to Riverhead from here. This was a remarkable situation that night, and the events of the day and the experience of these people should not be forgotten. The nearest hospital was over in Southampton. It had opened in 1913. The next nearest hospital, opening in 1907, was Eastern Long Island in Greenport. So the people who were badly injured, needed hospital, were taken to Southampton. Central Suffolk didn't open until 1951, and as we think today, our response of our first responders when there's a fire or an emergency, the numbers and volumes of volunteers and paid staff, ambulances and such that come today to service us. At that time, Eastern Long Island Hospital didn't get its first ambulance until 3 years after the wreck. We didn't have it. So people were transported by car, no ambulances, no EMS as we know it today. But they did the very, very, very best that they could, and they did a wonderful job with really a limited loss of life. But it's those people that we will remember today, and the people who lost their lives in the wreck. And it's to them that we dedicate this sign that we're going to unveil in just a moment. So to remember those that were lost, I have with me today 3 of our archivists and historians from the Railroad Museum of Long Island Library: George Walsh, John Rooney, and Paul Carr. And they are going to toll the bell as I call out the names of our 6 departed souls from that accident. Gentlemen. So today, 100 years after the horrible accident that happened right here behind us, we will remember and memorialize 1-year-old Dorothy Shuford. Her brother, 3-year-old George A. Shuford Jr. Their mother, Mrs. Dorothy Shuford, and along with the children, all of Biltmore, North Carolina. Mr. Harold L. Fish of Brooklyn and East Marion, and his picture is before me. Thank you to Nancy for bringing it. The Long Island Railroad fireman, Mr. John Montgomery of Greenport. And the Long Island Railroad engineer, Mr. Williams Squires of Greenport. At this time, we wish to give recognition to the foundation that provides us with these wonderful roadside markers in the state of New York and other places throughout the country. The William G. Pomeroy Foundation was formed to let us remember our place in history. They provide these markers.
to stay on the pavement.
You do.
How you doing?